Hey everybody, welcome back. Tanner Garcia here with my very first tutorial. Today I would like to talk about the basic settings on your camera. So I'm figuring if you're here, maybe you just bought your first camera, you're not sure how it functions or everything that it does. And if you're anything like me, which I'm pretty sure you're not because I'm pretty sure all of y'all are a lot smarter than I am. 3 years ago I was gifted a Nikon D5300, and at the time it was about $1,000. And so I just thought, I have an expensive camera, I'm gonna go and take amazing pictures and change the world. And I went out and took pictures, and so needless to say, I kind of gave up. I wasn't as dedicated to learning at the time the way that I became a few years later. So fast forward a few years, I go and I purchase a returned open box on sale Sony A6000 mirrorless and absolutely fell in love. So now I get my camera and there's, I think, 127 settings in the menu, and I was just blown away and had no idea how to use any of it, and I felt sick to my stomach. So I started researching and looking up, and through a lot of trial and error, and mostly error, I was able to learn and discover how the camera worked. I did take one semester as an elective in college, intro basics into camera. So hopefully I can take that entire semester and sum it up here in the next few minutes. The biggest things I got out of it, and the biggest things that you need to know, is on the top of your camera, you're probably going to have a dial, and it's going to have an M for manual, A for aperture priority, S for shutter priority, P for program mode. Sony's have an intelligent auto mode. So I think that for starting off, if you want some snapshots, shoot however it is that you want. I'm not telling you how to shoot. But if you want to learn a little bit more, I would suggest putting your camera on the M setting for manual mode. And this is going to give you the ability to adjust everything. Now, to start off with, if you watch any videos, you're gonna hear the term aperture or f-stop thrown around, and that is determined by the actual lens that you have. Now, what the aperture means or what the f-stop means is how much your lens actually opens. So I like to compare it to your pupils. The darker the room that you're in, the more your pupils dilate and get bigger to let more light in. The brighter it is, the more your pupils constrict to let less light in. Now, your lens works the same way in that sense, in that the wider open your aperture or the lower the number, the more light it's going to let in, and vice versa. The smaller the aperture or the higher the number, the less light it's going to let in. This will also determine your depth of field. So if you notice, my background looks quite blurry. I am shooting on the Sigma 1.4. So I'm going to have a really shallow depth of field, meaning that I'll be in focus here, and by the time I start getting to the back of my ear, further back, you're going to start getting a blown out background, which looks really creamy, scrumptious. And so that has a very appealing look to a lot of people. Me personally, I like blown out backgrounds, but then there's times that I want to get more of the background in focus. So just keep that in mind. Then the smaller your aperture or the bigger the number of your f-stop, the more you're going to get in focus, or the longer your depth of field is going to be. The next setting that I'd like to talk about is going to be your shutter speed. Now, your shutter speed can be looked at like how fast you blink your eyes. So the faster your eyes blink, or the faster your shutter clicks, or the faster your shutter speed, the less light you're going to let in. And the opposite end, the longer your shutter speed, the more light you're going to let in. So a slower shutter speed is good in low light situations, indoor, astrophotography, nighttime shots, light trails, light painting, stuff that we can get into a little bit later. And on the opposite end, the faster your shutter speed, the less light you're going to let in, which is really good for if you're shooting outdoors in the middle of the day. There's a lot of bright light. It's whatever the situation is that you're in, that there's a lot of light. The A6000 I know went to 1/4000th of a second shutter speed maximum, and on the A7 III and pretty much any pro camera will go to 1/8000th of a second. Lastly, you're going to have your ISO. ISO is going to stand for International Standards Organization, or International Organization on Standardization, something to that effect. Pretty much, it's a group of guys and gals that say, hey, this is how camera sensors should function or work, or how much light should hit the sensor. So they kind of set the parameters for camera sensors. The lower the ISO, the less light you're going to allow to hit your sensor. The A6000 went to 100 ISO. This camera goes to 50 ISO. Most cameras are probably going to be at 100 ISO. On the other side of that, the higher the ISO, the more light you're going to let in. Now, this is a big thing. I was kind of taught try never to go above 800 ISO because you're going to get a lot of digital noise. Think of it as film grain, only crappy. All cameras are not created equal when it comes to ISO settings, and I learned that when I jumped up to the A7 III. This camera does really well in low light. So I've shot at local concerts all the way up to 6400 ISO, and the image quality was still superb. Still able to edit the photos, and proud of the work that I shot with those photos. There wasn't anything that I wouldn't not show some. So with all this in mind, so understanding ISO, light sensitivity on your sensor, shutter speed, how fast your camera blinks, and your aperture slash f-stop, how wide your lens opens up, will really begin to help you understand how to adjust your camera for the situation that you're in. So let's say you're out shooting at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun's still really bright, and you're taking a picture and everything's coming out very blown out. Everything's just super white, no detail. You can't see any color in the sky. It just looks horrible. So the first thing I would look at is my ISO settings. I always want to try and get my ISO as low as possible. So crank my ISO all the way down to 150, whatever it is that the camera that I'm using at the moment has, and take a picture. If I look at the picture and it looks horrible, then I'm going to be like, I'm going to have to do something else. So at this point, I would jump to my shutter speed. If I crank my shutter speed up all the way to 1/8,000th of a second, I'm going to see that my photos are actually going to start getting darker. They're going to start allowing more of the image to look right, to allow the colors to show, allow your shadows to show, allow your contrast to show, allow everything to start coming together. Now, if after I've dropped my ISO all the way down and I've brought my shutter speed all the way up and I still can't get it dark enough, then the next step for me to do is adjust my aperture. So I'm going to start taking my aperture up from being wide open at 1.4, take it to a 2.8 or a 3.2 or a 5.6, and just keep going until I find that sweet spot where the photo looks good, where I can see shadows, I can see colors, I can see detail, and it's enough for me that I know that I'll be able to work with that in post whenever I do my editing afterwards. And so once you actually do this and you keep doing it in practice, and that's the biggest thing that a lot of people don't realize, or some people that I've met, they're like me when I started. I got a nice camera, I got expensive equipment. I'm going to go out and they don't do anything with it. They don't learn with it, or they keep using it in auto mode. And not saying that you're not going to get good images, but I feel that you're not going to be consistent or consistently get good images. So practice. So take your camera after you like this video and drop a comment. Tell me what else you want to see. Get your camera, go out and actually shoot and take a picture and look at the settings that you're on. Put it on manual, take a picture. What settings am I on? All right, I want to make it brighter. I want to make it darker. Adjust your aperture, take another picture and look. Adjust your ISO, take another picture and look. Adjust your shutter speed, take another picture and look. And it's that repetition that you start realizing where the sweet spot is in the camera for that situation that you're in. And the more you do it, age old adage, practice makes perfect, but I think perfect practice makes perfect. You have to know what you're doing to practice. Anyhow, that's a lesson for another day. Get out there and just shoot and focus on what you're actually doing and why you're doing it, and it'll get to the point where you'll be able to get dropped in any situation. You have your camera in hand and light's dark or light's bright, or there's a lot of shade, or there's a lot of overcast, or there's a lot of this or that, or whatever the case is, and you're already going to know I should probably start my camera at these settings, take a shot, and then make your fine-tune adjustments from there. But again, I've been shooting going on about, I guess, February will be 3 years that I've been shooting. So there's still times that I still struggle with making sure that I'm on the right settings, and I'm not perfect by any means. So I always make sure that whenever I'm out, I'm paying attention to what I'm doing. When I get in Lightroom, I like to shoot in a raw format. So when I do take my pictures into post, if I look at a picture and it looks great, I can actually see on the top right hand side corner what settings I was on, and then just kind of make a mental note. Hey, this was working for me. This wasn't working for me. My camera is strong on this side and it's weak on this side. And anyway, I'm just kind of rambling on at this point. But by all means, I mean, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop a comment below and ask, and I'd be more than happy to get back and answer you. Or you can also follow me on my Instagram at Tana Garcia Photo, which I'll leave the link in the description below. Maybe I'll put pop-ups somewhere. I don't know. All right, well, make sure to grab your camera, get out there and practice, and let me know what you think. Did this help you? Did this not help you? All right, see you on the next one.